Hello everyone, welcome to the Northland Artists Conversation. My name is Mark Kelly. I will be your Sherpa, your intrepid side person on this wonderful podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. I really do appreciate it. It's times like these that I absolutely love what we do. We've had some amazing guests on since we started, and we continue to get amazing guests, and we always invite guests back. So it's always super cool when a former guest decides they're going to take us up on the offer, which is what's happened. So we've had a few people do it. But this one was one that this is another one that I actively sought out because I was like, hey, you've had some really cool shit going on since we last talked. You need to come in, sit down, and just chat with us. That'd be cool. So guys, if you're watching or listening, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, just go like, subscribe, follow, all of that social media, jazzy jazz stuff, please. It really does help. That's super amazing. I'm going to flick to my camera. So today's guest is a second visit from the very cool, very bubbly Maggie Cocco, and it's always so lovely to sit down and chat with her. She's one of those people that is just so kind and caring and lovely, and she's always down for a laugh, whether it be a laugh in general, a laugh at myself, or even a laugh at herself. I consider her to be a very, very special person. She's incredibly creative, such an amazing human being. So this podcast, we don't, if you want to learn more about her background, go back, search the first podcast. Man, I highly recommend having a watch or a listen of that one. We cover off a lot of really, really big things. Because when we were doing that one, she was sort of, just about to go back on the road with Science for Sociopaths, that tour. And so this time around, I kind of wanted to find out how the tour had gone, where she was at. She's got an album that's due out, man, and it is it's on pre-order. It's on pre-order now, so highly recommend it. She did all of the recording here in Whangarei at Anzac Road Studios. Go have a look at their website. Super, super cool. Very, very amazingly talented people. So it was nice to be able to sort of find out where she's at, what she's been doing, and I guess where she's going as well. Super busy lady, 9 bands. Man, I struggled with one. Anyway, enough of my shit. Let's sit down and have a conversation with Maggie Cocco. Maggie Cocco, welcome back again to the Northland Artists Conversation. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio. Yeah. I don't always do it. I do. Actually, it's funny, I do it most of the time. But I always start off on some bullshit tangent.
It's good to have a ritual.
It is. The chicken sacrificing we'll do at the end still. Yep. Nice. Good talk. We'll get you to play the Haitian music and do some chanting. Mickey can bang drums. That's cool.
I'm working on Kirtan right now, actually.
Oh, yeah. Now that's really, really interesting, because that's why only this week was going to work, eh? Because you were going to start doing something in May, because we're recording this at the end of April.
Yes, yeah. Not the Kirtan, though. I'm not starting the Kirtan until later, so I've got some time to study it and kind of get it underneath me. No, I'm doing some workshops at Out of the Rock Shop for New Zealand Music Month.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah.
Wicked, man. That's cool. Well, by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be, I don't know, end of May, June.
It'll be just past.
Yeah. We'll have so let's say, hey, congratulations, went really well.
Oh, yep, thanks.
Yeah. Woohoo! And that's cool. But so lots happened for you since you were last on the podcast, which I guess is sort of why I wanted to get you back in. We've always extended an opportunity for our guests to just kind of come back and hang out and let us know where they're up to. But you've done a few tours, because last time you were here, you talked about Science for Sociopaths, but that's out. You've done your tours. Vinyl coming out.
Yeah.
There's a vinyl and CD bundle.
There is.
Yeah. I've done my research. Thank you very much. And now that's really cool. And that was all recorded here in Whangarei.
Yes, it was.
In Anzac Road Studios, not Abbey Road Studios.
Not Abbey Road.
Not Abbey Road, because I'm an idiot. So tell me, because Science for Sociopaths is quite an interactive experience, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a multimedia show. Not always, but it originated as a show that I was doing at arts festivals.
Okay.
And so I was trying to get fringy.
Right, okay, yeah.
And so I've been a musician for many years at the point that I started doing this show, and I wanted to do something outside the box. So I just did a general outreach to the community and was like, who wants to do some sort of visual art with me? What I'm going to be doing is playing music, and anything that can be done in real time. What do you got?
Yeah.
And we've done I don't even know how many shows. We've 12 shows that ended up. Yeah. Tons and tons of shows. We did 12 shows of the multimedia variety that have ended up in this, being featured in this alongside the vinyl. And everything like that. But we've done it with dancers and light VJs. Have you had Kim Newell on this podcast, or just his partner Maggie?
No, just Maggie. Kim hasn't been on yet. I'm trying to get him on, but he's very reticent to do it.
Well, he's a behind.
He is
the VJ.
Very much so.
He's behind the equipment person.
Yeah, I mean, I've had him on in some of the filming that I've done for Afi World. Yeah. But he's just not.
Yeah, I can't imagine getting him to talk, but he's brilliant getting him to do.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And you've also now I think the show that I saw advertised was one with Nimi.
Oh yes, Nimi Santosh at the Shutter Room.
Yeah. And from some of the photos I saw, they looked absolutely amazing and really trippy.
Yeah, good. That was actually, I think, one of the most straightforward and emo shows that we've ever done, because every show is different. So we figure out who the artist collaborator is going to be and what the venue is going to be before we figure out kind of what we're going to do. Yeah. There's always going to be an audience participation component. So between those things, we have to figure out what the audience is going to do to interact with it. And the reason is that I'm writing songs about interpersonal and systemic, kind of these bigger issues that can get very weighty and depressing, and instead of weighty and depressing, we want it to be more therapeutic and motivating. Yeah. And so the interactive part is so that people can come in and, as they're thinking and feeling about these things, do something about it immediately. Yeah. And every single show the concept is the same, but every single show is so different because these variables change. Right. Which is why it takes a lot to do a show. Each show can take quite a bit of prep. The Nimi one was cool because that was my first time doing one with a photographer.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, specifically doing a live show with a photographer. And that meant that it was a show where...
projectors.
Well, yeah. But it meant that it was a show where we didn't have... The audience wasn't doing anything, wasn't going to be interacting with the taking the photos themselves. Yeah. Whereas with painters... we'd have a giant canvas in an empty warehouse, for example, 6 buckets of paint, and people just go ham, and we've got a painter who's working with whatever the audience is throwing at them, kind of thing. Yeah. Where they're making a piece together. With this one, it was they couldn't be handling the camera. Right, yeah. With Nimi and stuff like that. So what we ended up doing was giving people temporary tattoo pens.
Oh, wow.
And going, whatever you're feeling, tattoo it on yourself or your neighbor. Make sure you've got consent, but just go. Yeah. And we've had audiences. I was really interested to see how this one would turn out, because we've had audiences where they've just gone hard, sometimes, quite nude if the situation called for it and things like that. And in this one, I thought it might end up going that way, but it didn't. People were very much like hands. It was mostly it was mostly hands, but it was and then some other parts of the body. And that, so they started off kind of tattooing themselves, and then they started getting comfortable and tattooing each other. Yeah. And so the exhibition that we ended up with, so we did this in the art gallery with nothing on the walls. And then we did the show and took the photos there, and then got those developed, and those went up in kind of a slow installation. And that was the exhibition, was the photos that Nimi captured of people reacting and tattooing themselves, which is such an intimate, like a tattoo can mean so many things for so many different people, but especially here in New Zealand, where tattoos are much more common than they are in a lot of other parts of the world.
Yeah, agreed. And
they can carry so much of your personal story and so much mana, and so it was really cool to bring that in. I didn't try to influence how people would perceive that or use it or anything. So it was cool to see just what people did.
Yeah, nice. So, I mean, that Science for Sociopaths, that's kind of been because, we shot your podcast last year. That's kind of been one of the factors that's kind of kept you out on the road quite a bit. I see that you're also doing the What the Folk.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
And then there's the other band that you've got as well.
I'm in 9 bands.
9. So what's it like having no life?
It depends who you ask, Yeah. And it depends when you ask me. And it depends because some people are like, you're living the life, and I most of the time I feel like I am.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's explore that a little bit, because being a full-time musician in New Zealand is not as easy as being a full-time musician, say, in Australia or the UK or America.
I don't think it's easy anywhere. I think the hustle is, you have to hustle at this, no matter where you are. And I guess in my experience so far, the level of hustle I have just kind of works for me no matter where I'm at.
Okay. How do you juggle... Man, I can't even believe I'm about to say this. How do you juggle 9 bands? Because it's not just you. There's different people and egos and all of that sort of stuff. I struggled with one band. And it was 5 of us.
That's because you were too invested in that one band is what it is.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not the admin on most of those bands. I have my baby, which is Science for Sociopaths.
Okay.
I have that I put most of my admin type brain into.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of bands that I'm in, and I know what my job is. I don't have to put too much thought into that, because it's just what I do anyway, and I just show up and do my job. Someone else handles the admin for those bands.
Okay. So, I mean, that must... that certainly must sort of help ease the load as well. But 9 bands, there's still scheduling, and
they're not all like hyperactive and stuff like that. It's like
they're not all out to try.
No, they're all at different
levels,
and they all do different things. So I've got my my indie singer-songwriter project, which is Science for Sociopaths. I've got Sand Detroit Band, which is a covers band, just wedding corporate, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I am the admin on that one, but that's a word of mouth band.
Right. Okay.
So I don't do too much with it. And
so not one of those big push.
No, I don't big push on that one. It's just we do a good job. People know, so they hire us, which is nice. It's mostly like private parties. Occasionally the venue opening or something.
Pays pretty well.
Yeah, that one
it's covers,
has to pay well.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
No, I do love playing covers, but I get my fill of playing. Like, this is, you know.
There's only so many times you can play hits from the 70s and 80s and be like, well, we're good now.
Yeah. Well, you know, I never mind playing covers because the audiences love them.
Yeah, definitely. Do you sort of slip in? You go, here's a bunch of covers, just go slip one of ours in.
Not usually.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends, like, because we're mostly doing weddings and stuff like that.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Occasionally, if it's like a pub gig and I've got the audience in the palm of my hand, so I know they'll be receptive because they like me.
Yep.
Then I will do that.
Okay.
But you got to read the room.
Yes. And we were talking about reading the room before as well. It's very important to read the room.
It's very important to read the room.
Now, I was fortunate enough to see you play just recently at Butter Factory, opening for John Toogood. As someone who's going on before someone that is so beloved by Kiwis and did very much a Kiwi set, you know, he did, I got to make sure I get this right, he did 3 of his own solo songs, then he did 4 She-Hard / Pacifier songs, but the rest were covers.
Yeah.
Now yours was mainly originals.
Yeah.
With, God, so you did it right at the end, and I just fucking loved you for it. You did Nutshell at the end.
I did.
Which was great, and watching a bunch of drunk idiots try and sing it was great.
It was good for that audience.
It was amazing. Yeah, it really was. But how does that, how does that sort of work for you when you're going, cool, I'm not the feature artist. People know me, and I've certainly, but I'm essentially here as the support act.
Well, and at that particular gig, I knew very few of the audience members. I had a handful of people that were there for me, but it was a packed house for John Toogood.
Yeah.
So and I'm not listed on the promotional material or anything like that.
No.
So I am an unwelcome surprise that they have to sit through for an hour, kind of thing, unless.
Welcome surprise.
Unless
so cold.
Well, it's true though.
It's not like surprise you've got herpes. It's just like Jesus. It's like, can't you just go, I'm an added bonus.
Well, you want to think that, but if you go in with that, like, I'm an added bonus, appreciate me as an added bonus, you're not being realistic, because that's not how the audience is seeing it. They're like, where's John?
Yeah.
So you have to approach it like, I am going to get these people on side. Yeah. And I'm going to hold them there. Yeah. And so you have to work for it. And I don't always get it right, but thankfully at the show that you were at, I nailed it. And so I got on stage, and I'm trying to remember what I did. It was a little bit of like willing it into existence. I started, I did?
You started at the end.
I did.
And you were like, I'm going to start at the end of Science for Sociopaths. And then you kind of went all around the show. Yeah.
So I said I didn't play my song cycle all the way through.
Yeah.
You can't do that with an audience that's not prepared for that. So what I did was I gave them kind of a sampler of some different things that I can do. And I did, you're right. I started with, we're going to start at the end. I said very little. I said, we're going to start at the end, which is just just create some intrigue.
Yeah.
And it worked, because people were like, what do you mean?
Yeah. Start at the end. Does this mean one song, then John? I'm okay with one song, then John.
Yeah. And then I think I willed their paying attention into existence by doing by praising it into existence.
Yeah.
So I think, like, between the first and the second song, very early in the set, I was like, I knew an audience of John Toogoods would be a good listening audience. And then they were like, we're a good listening audience. Yeah. And so you just kind of like guide them into, and it doesn't always work. If you've got a group of people there that they're just there to drink and to see John, then there's you a lot of them you can't. Sometimes you just can't. There's nothing you could say or do to get them on side. But a lot of the times, if you are playing it right, you can.
Yeah.
And so it worked out really well. I was really happy with it.
Interestingly enough, there were a few people that I knew through work, but also personally, that were there, and they actually said they had a really good night, as a whole,
cool. Not
just John, who they'd paid to go see, but they actually thoroughly enjoyed you and your work as well. So I was like, fuck yeah. Were you expecting her to suck?
Well, but
no. I know you have no idea what you're in for, but But John Toogood's not going to go, hey, look, so I want to get a year 12 kid that's never gigged and has written 3 songs about, anything to do with acne and chasing girls. Let's get them to open up for me. He's going to pick a quality musician, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know what to say to that, but I'll say thank you. But, that's kind of how I saw it as working, as it was like, and then how did the Mungify show go?
Mungify show also went well. The tricky thing about the Mungify venue was that it's really long.
Yes, it is.
And so I would say it didn't go as well in terms of my audience retention as Fungaday did, because I had the audience from about midway forward, and it was the same kind of vibe as Fungaday.
Yep.
But from like midway back, it was just chaos. But to be fair, they were chaotic for John too. They did not slow down. They were like, it was like a Saturday night party hard for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that I guess that's sort of all about reading the room and I guess the crowd you're going to get as well. The rowdy crowd or the respectful crowd.
And the nice thing is that I've done this so much that I don't feel any kind of way about that. I'm like, I did a good freaking job.
Do you ever have times where you're like, I really shit the bed on that one? Or where you're like, man, I just killed it so hard, I could...
There's always room for improvement. I'd say I'm more likely to be hard on myself if it didn't go well, because often as soon as I get off stage, I know what I should have done differently.
Right.
But that's a waste of energy. Beyond the point where you realize what you could do better next time, it's a waste of energy, and I'm guilty of wasting that energy much too often, but I'm working on it.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty good about, I'm getting better at giving myself the wins, but I mean, like everybody, it's easier for me to flog myself than to,
Yeah, that's it. Go, man, I'm going to stand in the corner and take out a Solis and just beat myself with it. Self-flagellation. And that's tough, as we've sort of had artists on here for, nearly 2 years now, there's a lot of artists like that. I mean, most creative people tend to be their own worst critics. They're a lot of them are filled with doubt.
Yeah.
And even just sometimes getting stuff out into public for the first time. I mean, I've had some great painters on here, for example, where they're like, I didn't really expect to be on a podcast and talk about my painting. It's like, well, why not? I don't consider myself an artist, but you are. Yeah, but that was the first time I'd ever submitted something. It's like, yeah, but you did.
You arted.
Yeah, exactly. You arted. So let's just talk about some of the wins in your life that you've had, and then you sort of find out that they've had like a massive backstory of work that they've done, but have just always held that fear of going, man, if I show it and I get rejected, it's going to be the worst feeling ever.
I don't think that's just creatives. I think that's people in general. But the thing about creatives that I think is amazing is that we do it anyway.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people, because like what we do is inherently riskier in so many different ways, and vulnerability ways, financially if you're trying to make a living off of it. But I don't think we're unique in that, but in the feeling these imposter syndrome type things. But I do think that we face it more than most people.
I'll agree with that. I think in some aspects. No, the reason I'll say is because of that. Yeah, turning the dial, it's like volume goes up, volume goes down. Yeah, I'll agree but disagree. And the reason I'm going to do that is because when you create, you're essentially opening up your heart or your brain and you're pouring something out. I don't imagine a lot of people going, so I've created this really technical spreadsheet and it's got the lookup tables and these amazing formulas.
maybe pride, but not vulnerability.
Yeah. Of course they'll have pride in it, but and as someone who, when you're talking about Science for Sociopaths, you're talking about the music is very weighty. You're essentially pouring your heart and soul into this music. When you're writing it, are you going, man, I really hope people get this? Or are you going, I don't give a shit if people get this because this is for me?
I'm not thinking about other people when I write.
Yeah.
It's only when you go to share it with other people that you start to be like, but it's because you weren't thinking about other people when you were writing it.
Yeah. And I mean, that can be quite tough and daunting as well. When, again, referencing the earlier podcast, you were taking Science for Sociopaths material out to try and road test it and see how it would go. Actually, that's a really good question. Did you, having taken it out and done, when you went in to record, did the songs start off the same and end up the same? Or was it very much like, well, I've got to make a few tweaks here and I can modify this slightly?
Well, by the time that I brought it into the studio, I had been playing it for a couple years. So I'd been workshopping it in front of live audiences. The point at which I was like, okay, I'm ready to record this was the point at which it started to settle.
Okay.
And just I knew what it was at that point.
And writing some of that real deeply personal stuff is respect.
Thanks.
Mad respect, because I'm too much of a pussy.
Well, how did it feel when you were doing your growly bits and you knew that you were saying something that was really deeply personal to you, but also that you're in front of an audience, but also that they couldn't understand what you were saying?
It was good. For me, the whole it was I always treated it as a cathartic experience where I could take all of the, the anger and the rage that was kind of behind it and just really throw it out there and let people see, oh wow, yeah, no, he's really fucking angry. Nothing more manly than a fucking 35-year-old running around about how he's fucking angry. Relationships. It's disingenuous.
Well, but you had audiences, and so you had people who felt what you were putting out there.
Yeah, I mean,
whether they knew specifically what you were saying or what it was about or not.
And it was interesting, as time went on, I started writing more abstract ideas and stuff. There was one song I wrote called Failure of Natural Selection, which was a guy over in Sweden or Norway or Denmark or something like that, had gone on a school shooting spree. Typically a very American thing. Well, it's good to see you. The marker's not cornered. But what he'd done is he'd posted videos about what he was going to do. And so what I did is I broke the song up into sections. I broke the song up into his thoughts and was literally using his words. Yeah. The thoughts of the media.
Right.
And then the thoughts of the police and what they were saying. And I was like, this is just really fucking weird. No,
it's very topical.
Yeah. No one knew what it was about, though, which is great.
Topical. I think that the larger abstract stuff is the stuff that's worth getting upset about, because that's what I try to, that's what I try to draw attention to in my songs. I use very concrete, relatable experiences, but I'm trying to draw attention to the larger picture that is the world in which these experiences are relatable.
Yeah. But okay, so what do you find harder writing about then? The personal stuff or the topical stuff which you're passionate about? Because you're not going to sit there and write something that you're not passionate about. You're not going to sit there and go, well, I'm really ambivalent about Dr. Shane Reddy. I'm just going to write a song about him, for example. Sorry, Dr. Shane Reddy. I actually think you're a really nice guy. But I just use it as a reference. But you're going to write something that you're really passionate about, right? That's topical, you know. So, Hamas, Palestine, what's happening there, which is the bigger challenge to write?
I don't think you can separate those things, because you can't write about something outside of its broader context. So when a lot of my songs are I'm to me, they're about something much bigger than the language that I'm using.
Okay.
And so I try to allude to that without trying to get lost in the giantness of it, and kind of whatever stage and awareness you're at when you're listening.
Yeah.
If you're feeling more this is happening to me and I relate to it on a personal level, or if you're a bit more removed and you're going, I can see why women find themselves in these situations over and over and over again. Here's another example of that.
Yeah.
You're going to feel something in there.
Okay. And I mean, I'm not going to call myself a songwriter. From one lyricist to no, because you write music and lyrics. I didn't write the music. I just, Cookie Monstered over some heavy shit, and we seem to do okay with it.
Debatable.
No, I really did Cookie Monster.
No. I'm saying, but we could break down your Cookie Monster. There's a method to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh
man, I love it when podcasts, I have no idea where they're going to go, which is great, and this is cool. So, Science for Sociopaths, the record. You've road tested all the material, you've taken it out, you've kind of made your tweaks, and you've gone, yeah, these are the core songs that I like. When you hit the studio, what's the mindset that you're going in for? Are you going in for the cold, clinical Mutt Lange / Def Leppard approach, or are you going in with the Jim Steinman / Meatloaf? I'm going for feel. Yeah.
It's probably more that, but there is a combination of both. I did find, I tried to road test because things were so well road tested. There was only a couple things that were confronting, and they were really confronting because everything was pretty well in there, so then I was like, oh, I've got to do that differently. Ugh, how do I even but because we set out to record an analog album because we were doing this in partnership with Anzac Road, which is an analog studio. They approached and were like, we want you to record your show here.
It's a beautiful looking studio. I mean, I'd highly recommend having a look at the website, guys. It's amazing. I had no clue that something like that vintage was in Whangarei. It's amazing.
Andy, who runs it, has a really keen eye, and he's got a very he's got a vision that he wants things to be in alignment with. And so I'd never done an recorded analog before, and it's a whole process, but I felt that because I was a performer, that more so, I do more performing than I do recording. That I would be able to make that work, and that actually it would be really in alignment with the project because it started out as a live performance
definitely.
show, and so we didn't do it as a live thing, but I wanted to capture that
live energy, right? That spontaneity that sort of happens.
As much as possible. The confronting parts where there was one song in particular that I just changed tempo on wildly. Just one out of 10 songs. Yeah, one of them that I was just like, this really feels like it needs to be, it was 2 different sections, like between the verse and the chorus, and they just felt like they needed to be at 2 completely different tempos.
Yeah.
And, we got there in the end, but I ended up recording it to a click in my headphones, and it was so uncomfortable, and I ended up having to come back and re-record it off of a click, but after having practiced it with a click a bunch, because it was too clinical with the click. But it was too wild without it, so then I had to go, weirdly enough, that's the one that live always gets people, and that's one of the reasons probably that somehow it's ended up being so wild because of in reaction to audiences.
Yeah.
You know, but that didn't come across. That didn't carry in the recording. So there were some things that I was doing live that was, from what I could tell, working live that didn't work.
Didn't translate from the live setting into the studio.
So there was a couple things like that I had to manage.
Wow.
But it was the lovely thing is that I had all the time in the world to get it right because of Andy's ethos and his vision for the project. It was like, we do it until we get it right, which was super important for me also having to learn how to approach recording from an analog.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You know, there's a great documentary called Sound City. I think directed by Dave Grohl, where he interviews artists that have recorded at Sound City Studios in California, I think essentially is where it is. And they talk about, you know, you have to go in and be prepared, and then be prepared to make changes, but also do, like, you know, I think there was one track, I think Refugee, they did like 100 takes of it before they got it right. And I was just like, man, those are...
It's a lot of hours you're clocking up. That's a lot of tape.
That's a lot of tape, a lot of time.
You got to have so much money in most places to do that. That's why with this is such a unique experience, because I got the album I wanted without having to compromise. In most places...
Or without having to spend a fortune.
Without having to compromise. Well, that's because I don't have a fortune.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a fortune, so that's not an option. So I've always had to compromise.
Yeah.
I've always had to be like, this is the number of days that I can afford.
Yeah.
And we got to get it in those days. And so I've always walked away going, well, we did our best. You know, whereas this one, I walked away going, this is our best. This is my best. This is the best thing I've ever done.
Wow.
Because I got to do it until it was.
And I mean, that's one of the things, you know, with the old, especially the old studio systems, because they were analog, you know, time is money. But you had bands that were spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to produce an album. Yeah, I know. And, you know, we do live in a digital age now where, you know, a guy with a SSL 12 Plus and a Neumann TL 102 microphone can make music, you know, vocalists sound good, you know, because you can just simply load up a digital audio workstation, have someone record. If they suck, you can slap them through auto-tune and all of that sort of stuff, and then all of a sudden you've got pop music. Sorry.
I think there's a space for all of that. You know, like, I'm really grateful that I'm someone who has learned by live performance. You know, that I don't have to rely on apps and things like that to sing in tune or to be musical and stuff. There are things that I do, but I think there is an audience for everything. I think there is space for all of it. What there's not space for is people don't have space to process or to absorb or to experience everything, which is why the economy right now is based on people's attention.
Yep.
You know?
Oh, TikTok.
I don't know how to get some of that, but I do know that I've made a damn good album.
And that's the most important thing, right? I mean, you know, often you hear artists when they're being interviewed about their album, they're like, man, it's the best album I've ever done. It's like, didn't you say that about the last album, though? And it's like, well, yeah, I did, but this one's even better.
Well, hopefully each thing you're doing, you know...
Yeah, you progress.
You progress, yeah, it is.
But, you know, back in the day, you'd progress as technology progressed, but you can't say that about this album because you regressed. You went back to older technology to capture the essence of a sound.
Regressing. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
But I find that so... I mean, it makes sense to me as an artist. I understand going back to tape, but you could look at it and go, but why do it? I mean, you've got, you know, you can spend like a couple of grand and you can get like a good mic and a laptop. It's to get
that thing. It's to get the depth and the breadth. I think because of the kind of music that I'm doing, my audience will appreciate that I've done that.
Well, you'll also pick up frequencies in tape that you don't necessarily get in a digital environment, right?
I think I'm making an album for
audiophiles.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
And I've really narrowed it, and it's not a large band production or anything either. This is piano, cello, and voice. So it's very open, lots of space, and that's another thing that I wanted people to hear was the space in it.
Yeah.
I've always been I'm very drawn to music that has space in it. I don't know how to explain that if you don't know what it is.
It's allowing songs to breathe. Yeah. And there I always reference Something in the Way by Nirvana because that is a song, like, never mind that album itself is very dense. There's a lot to it, lots of anger and emotion, but you get to Something in the Way and it's Kurt Cobain lying down in the studio with a guitar that's slightly out of tune and just singing with all the emotion, and he's going, holy shit, let's slap a cello over it and maybe a bit of drums. But that's it. We're not leave it untouched. So finding tracks and just letting them occupy their own space and time. And it doesn't have to be nutrient dense.
Yeah.
It's just like, you're going to hear whatever you want to hear out of it. If you hear something that may or may not have been intentionally been put there, but I can promise you I didn't go in and go, I'm just going to drop this cheeky sample from Citizen Kane. Here we go.
I think everything in this album there's nothing in this album that is too much. And there's also nothing that is missing. Oh, wow. I think that's what I was going for, is this, I would feel out the space and go, okay, this space feels uncomfortable. It needs something. I never got to a point where I was like, I'd never let it be too busy. Yeah. And I never let it be too empty. It was like I just gave it what it needed.
Okay.
And I feel good about that.
If you were to describe the album for people that are watching and listening, or even people that are going, well, is it going to be available on iTunes or blah, blah, blah. First off, I'd highly recommend actually picking up the vinyl. I think there's going to be more depth and tonal quality to it. There's also the CD as well, which will be good. But I wouldn't recommend hearing it on, Spotify or anything like that. Because
if I put it on Spotify, go listen to it on Spotify.
Of course. Go listen to it. Support it. Support an artist. But if you were to describe it, how would you sort of sum it up? Because you've lived with it for 2 years pretty solidly, right?
It's hard to sum up something that is such a huge part of your life.
Yeah.
That's like, how do you sum up your husband? I'm like,
not a dick.
Yeah.
There you go.
He's a dick when I need him to be.
Yeah.
And then,
anyway.
Yeah. I think, how would I describe it? I would say everything that comes to mind. This is where cliches come from.
Of course.
Because these questions, this is the moment where it's like, how do I summarize something like this? Now I'm just going to, utter some terrible cliche.
Yeah, or it's got reference, and you're going to reference other artists as well. So people have like a benchmark. Yeah. To, they go, oh, yes, it sounds like, okay. Yeah. I kind of know what that sounds like.
Yeah. But
how do you do that without doing that?
What's funny is I've asked people, I've tried to figure out who I sound like, because you can't judge for yourself. And so I ask other people what I sound like, and people always just tell me, I've heard so many different female artists. I've heard every single female artist that plays a piano. Yep. Because that's what I often do. Yep. And what I've realized is people just tell you that you sound like a female who plays a piano, if you're also a female who plays a piano, even if you sound nothing like them, or that you sound like someone that they like. Okay. And even if you sound nothing like them, if they like you, they're like, you sound like this other artist that I also like. I don't, but I understand that is you putting me into a category in your mind of like. Yeah. So it's hard for me to tell who I sound like. I've been trying to find out, because you actually need to know these things for placement in playlists and all that kind of stuff.
Where you belong in segments and stuff. Yeah.
I've been told Larkin Poe meets Patti Penguin Orchestra. What is it? That's not the full name of it. People who know that group will know what I mean by saying that. And if you don't, you don't care. So that doesn't matter. What else? I've been told I sound like Joan Baez. I've been told that I sound like Pat Benatar. I've been told that I sound like, Joan Baez and Pat Benatar do not sound like each other.
No.
So I don't know how I sound like that.
They are miles
do you know what
off
I mean?
Each other,
but
yeah.
I think what I gather from that is I have a very strong but also dynamic and sensitive voice. I can do a lot of things with my voice. I don't have any imposter syndrome about that. That's how I make my living. So I know that I know how to use it. I use it in a way that I don't use it for anything else for this project, because when you get to sing your own songs, your voice comes out in a way that it just doesn't when you're singing anything else.
Okay. My question was, what do you think your album sounds like? Not who it sounds like. What do you think it sounds like? Yeah, what do you think it sounds like? I mean, I get the other artists' points of reference, but as someone who's had this child,
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you wanted those points of reference.
No, I mean it's great to have them, but you've had this child gestating for 2 years.
I think it sounds like where I've been and where I'm going. And I think it sounds like a distinctly first-person female. It sounds like me. What do I sound like?
I don't know.
It sounds like me.
So you can be a million Pat Benatars. There can be a million Joe Baez, but there can only be one Maggie Cocco, right?
There can only be one Maggie Cocco.
You'd hope.
Well, I'll know that I've made it when there's an AI version of me.
Or your clone turns up. Quite scary.
When people can go write me a song in the style of Maggie Cocco and there's an AI.
Oh, God, yes.
Some of it.
Yeah, you're like, and now I've officially made it.
Yes.
And I'm now out of a job.
Because now AI has analyzed my isms.
Yeah. The isms.
My isms for reproduction.
Oh, dear. So, okay. So there's
But until then, it's underground, so.
Okay. So now I know that there's some of our viewers that have questions around AI. So you've opened this. I'm really excited to hear this. Yeah, man. Let's get uncomfortable.
I don't
What
know.
are your thoughts on AI in the creative space?
I think that you cannot stop this train.
Yep.
I think that the only thing that you can do, I think the only thing you can do is consider the potential harms and think about ways to mitigate them. Yep. And then challenge yourself to embrace the potential good.
Nicely said.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
I think it's going to increase, for me personally, I think it's going to increase demand for things that sound distinctly human.
Yeah. Authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I guess the reason I asked that question is, I'm worried that it's going to get to a time where, as we jokingly said, create a song by in the style of Maggie Cocco, and then something suddenly appears, right? There are. I think we're a lot closer to that than what people think.
No, I'm sure we are.
Because I saw that there are AI influencers.
Yeah.
That
I do know this, yeah.
That people are following.
Yeah.
And it's like, you do know that this is not a real person, right?
Yeah.
This is bullshit.
Yeah. I think this is all one step closer to all of us not having to work and just like restructuring fucking everything, if I'm being honest. And I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
No, I know that we're living in the before times and that the process is going to be shit.
Yeah.
Hopefully not bloody.
Yeah, well, Cyberdyne.
Yeah.
No one needs the T1000 knocking at your door going, hi.
Yeah.
The mimetic polyalloy that can shapeshift into Maggie Cocco. I don't want to go out and play a gig tonight. Can you just
Yeah.
Can AI just go off and take care of it for me?
What is it? There's a my brain doesn't do recall on demand. It's not good at this. But there's a sci-fi show, Seth MacFarlane. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Oh, the Orville?
Yes, the Orville.
Yeah.
I said everybody else got that in the
Yeah,
room.
we
Got
all
that
got it
before you,
straight
and they were
away.
all like,
Yeah,
"Oh
it's
no, I'm not
like-
on this podcast,
yeah.
so I can't even." The Orville, and I think it was one of the final episodes. Like there was a world on it where I think Lizzo was the queen or something like that, and I know that there was like a, hey, don't put too much trust in computers kind of thing. But like also it was a society where like they've got machines doing all the menial work and humans just get to fucking live and everybody has a right to live and everybody, and I'm like, yeah, that.
Yes, but I look on the flip side and go, have you seen the film WALL-E?
Yes, I've seen. Oh god.
Yeah, I know. It's a great film.
Oh, the tears.
But everyone ends up in a spaceship, obese, sitting down, because everything's done for them.
And
Really?
Yeah. If shit goes wrong, it's because it's a reflection of us.
Yeah. Oh god, we're screwed then.
Or we could just work on
Right
being better.
Yeah.
I'm ever hopeful.
Yeah, look, yeah. I don't know. I float between the two.
Dude.
There are days where I'm optimistic about the human race, and there are days where I'm like, well, we're fucked.
I'm practical about trying to do things about it.
Yeah.
But I am ever optimistic because, again, back to that wasting energy.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, essentially, it could get to a point where you go, well, I'm going to record a song digitally, enter some command strokes like insert band in the style of da-da-da-da.
Oh, no. I'm going past that. I'm going to computer read this song out of my mind, please, for me.
So you're looking at the neural implant then?
Fucking hell, yeah.
Wow.
I have music stuck in my head. I have a degree in music. I can get music out.
Yeah.
There's so much music that is stuck in there. Oh.
Okay. So to being able to get it out would be great.
Yeah.
Until someone hacks it and takes over. Small price to pay, she says. If the music's gone and my brain is silent and I can get more than 4 hours sleep a night because I'm not lying in bed going, wait, if I go from an A diminished to a G, that works. Something along those lines, eh?
I mean...
Yeah, stranger things have happened.
Yep.
Maggie, thank you so much for coming in and being on the podcast again with us. This is really now. When does the album actually become available for sale? Because at the moment it's only pre-order, right?
Right. Well, but that's the sale you can buy it for the way we're doing it is a very environmentally friendly campaign. So you order it, and then within the time frame that we have it, that they're available, we're collecting orders, and then they'll go. Then they'll get made the exact number that were ordered.
They're essentially being batched.
Yes,
right?
They're being batched.
Cool.
And that way, because vinyl is not the most environmentally friendly thing.
No.
Yeah, that way we end up only making the number that is ordered.
As opposed to holding on to massive amounts of stock and stuff. Yeah.
Right. So I'll be doing these campaigns intermittently. This one's going to be ending soon, but I'll be doing these campaigns intermittently. I haven't released it digitally yet, mostly because if you release something and you just haven't really thought out how to do it, it just disappears into the ether with the other 120,000 songs that are released a day.
Yeah.
And so I'm just still working on my plan for that, but I'll be doing these vinyl in batches and something different with it each time, and you'll be speaking with my husband Mickey soon, who's helping me with the artwork, and he'll tell you more about that. But
cool. Yeah,
it's gonna be good. So there's a vinyl and the CDs in these environmentally friendly batches, or I've got a handful that I can have with me.
Is this gonna be the first bundle?
This is the first
This
bundle.
is the first bundle.
The very first.
Wow.
Ever. Limited first editions. They're very special to me. Yeah, we've gone all out for them. So
they do look amazing.
Yeah.
When I jumped on the website and had a look, I was like, man, this is cool, because nowadays a lot of artists are going for bundle options for people like me who go, well, I'd like the album, but what else can I get? I don't mind paying for it, but what else can I get? So, yeah, look, really appreciate you coming on, sitting down with us again. This is super cool. I'm not going to say I hope it does well. I know it's going to go well. Put positivity out in the universe, the secret. So we'd love to have you on maybe next year and sort of talk about where you're at and catch up and see how it went. And
yeah,
cool,
hopefully
man.
It's the same, because I feel like last time I was here, I've so much has happened between then and now. Touring in the States and touring and popping over to Europe and doing all this kind of stuff, and we've got a European tour kind of in the works, and so we'll have done so much more by the time we see you again. It'll be awesome. But if you want to keep up with me, I've got my social media, of course, which is Maggie Cocco Music and Maggie Cocco Science for Sociopaths. If you want to see everything, or if you want to see just that project. And then I've got my Patreon, which is where people support me on a regular basis, and you know all about Patreon.
I do.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thanks, Maggie. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
There you go, everyone. The wonderfully charming Maggie Cocco. Just such a great podcast. So interesting to find out that all of the hard work, effort, and energy that she put into the Science of Sociopaths record, and the fact that it's coming out on vinyl. That is super cool. It was just to be able to talk with her, it's just always awesome. So, we're looking forward to seeing where she goes and what she does. Each podcast, that we do with her is always cool. I always find out little nuggets of information that are wicked. I'm going to flick to my camera. So what did I get out of this one? Well, I tell you what, rapid fire was sure as shit interesting. I can promise you that much. The first question and the 8th question. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back onto Facebook and Instagram and watch the rapid fire. You won't be disappointed. I think if I put all of that aside and I look at the actual podcast itself and as a whole, and I work out what I got the most out of it is the discipline that it takes, and it's about the hustle, and understandably it's not easy. It's never going to be easy being a musician. Trying to make a career as a musician is always tough, so you've always got to hustle and grind. Mad respect for that. Do the young kids say mad respect nowadays? Is it something? No, I'm getting side-eye from old bag of joy over here. Good stuff. Thanks for that. Yeah, still getting side-eye. Brilliant. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, it's cool. She's a cool person, and it was great to see her perform a set at Butter Factory, and to see such a receptive crowd as well. Man, it was a lot of fun. And she ended that set playing quite possibly my favorite Alice in Chains song of all time, which is Nutshell. And yeah, it's a great version. So cool. Anyway, I digress. Again, I seem to be full of it tonight. But where can you find this podcast? You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. That's all for the audio stuff. That'll all be somewhere down the bottom here. Yeah, somewhere around there. And for audio, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and whatever Google Podcasts is called now. I think it's YouTube Podcasts. I don't know. Go have a look. There hasn't really been much solid communication from Google. Thanks, guys. But it's out there. It's in the ether. It's very cool. And if you or someone you know would like to be on the podcast, or you think would be a good guest, man, we're open to as many different people as possible. So please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to us either through our Facebook page or Instagram page. Just message us that way. Or you can email hello@northernartistsconversation.co.nz. We keep it simple here. It's pretty much all Northern Artists Conversation. Just enter that into Google and everything comes up. Good stuff. I'm going to go back to the wide. Yeah, so it was winter. We've passed the time of hay fever. Thank the maker. Me and autumn have a love-hate relationship, in that I love to hate it. Because it's just one of those things where I get quite bad hay fever, so it always feels like, if anyone's ever watched the film American History X, where Edward Norton tells the guy to eat the curb, that's what it feels like for me. If you know, you know. But it's, it's winter, it's cold. Yeah. Extra blankets and heater time. Good stuff. But yeah, look, we've had a great run this year. Having taken that little bit of time off at the start of the year was awesome. But we are back. We are better than ever. We've had some amazing guests. We've got a lot more to come. So make sure you stick around. On behalf of myself, Mark Kelly, your host, and the Northland Artists Conversation team, thank you so much for continuing to support us and for being an amazing audience. And we will see you guys real soon.